In the 8th century BCE, the Greek poet Homer wrote two of the greatest epics ever composed. The Iliad and the Odyssey describe the sea, the sky, and the world around them in extraordinary detail. But across nearly 27,000 lines of verse, Homer never once called anything blue. The sky in his poems is bronze, the sea is wine dark, and the color blue, which surrounds every character in every scene, simply doesn't exist. For a long time, scholars assumed this was a poetic choice. But then a 19th century British politician named William Gladstone decided to count every color word Homer ever used. What he found was startling. Homer mentioned black nearly 200 times, white around 100, red a handful, but blue not once. Not in the sky, not in the water, not anywhere.
Gladstone assumed something was wrong with Homer's eyes. But then a German scholar named Lazarus Geiger took the question further. He examined ancient texts from across the world: Sanskrit, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Icelandic. And in every single one, he found the same pattern. Black and white appeared first, then red, then yellow and green, and blue in every culture, across every language, appeared last. Sometimes it didn't appear at all. The ancient Greeks had no word for blue. Neither did the Japanese, whose ancient texts used the same word for blue and green. The Icelandic sagas, written by people who spent their lives surrounded by ocean and sky, contained almost no reference to the color blue. In fact, of all the ancient civilizations examined, only one developed a dedicated word for blue early on: ancient Egypt. And they were also the only ancient civilization known to have produced blue dye.
This pattern suggested something that was difficult to accept. If you don't have a word for something, do you actually see it? In the early 2000s, a cognitive researcher named Jules Davidoff traveled to Namibia to find out. He worked with the Himba people, a community whose language has no distinct word for blue. Davidoff showed them a circle of squares, 11 green squares and 1 blue square. He asked them to identify which one was different, and most of them couldn't. They saw a ring of identical squares. The blue square didn't stand out because their language had given them no reason to separate it from green. But when Davidoff reversed the test, the results flipped entirely. He showed the Himba a circle of green squares with one square that was a very slightly different shade of green, a difference most English speakers would struggle to detect. The Himba identified it instantly. Because their language contains multiple distinct words for shades of green, their brains had been trained to see those differences clearly.
This is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, the idea that language doesn't just describe the world, it actively shapes how we perceive it. Not in a simple or absolute way. The Himba weren't blind to blue. Their eyes worked exactly as ours do. But without a word to separate it from the rest of the color spectrum, blue simply didn't demand their attention. It blended in. Which raises a quiet, uncomfortable question. If Homer's world was full of blue he couldn't name, what is in your world right now that you're failing to see? What experiences, emotions, or ideas exist around you that your language hasn't given you the tools to isolate and hold?
Languages that have more words for snow allow their speakers to perceive meaningful differences between snowflakes that others simply experience as white. Languages with more precise emotional vocabulary allow their speakers to recognize feelings that others might lump together as simply good or bad. The boundaries of your language are, in some quiet and persistent way, the boundaries of your world. Homer looked out at the Mediterranean every day of his life. The blue was always there. He just didn't have the word for it. And without the word, the color, for all its vastness, remained invisible.